Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host and evolutionary astrologer, postmodern astrologer of this astrological show, Talk Cosmos, and welcome. Thank you for joining us as we talk to the cosmos in all its dimensions and all its forms and its ever-changing manners. The moon, which is the Moonbeam Team, this particular calendar day for July 25th, always looks at those energetic focuses because life does go through a cycle. We know this. We can easily look at the fact: child, baby, toddler, young adult, what kind of adult? Modern sociology looks at all that. I know I took a class once in the 70s and it said, hey, 20s, you made it, baby. And then I took it 10, 20 years later. It went, oh, no. The 20s are this, the 30s are that, the 40s, 50s, and then legacy and blah, blah. So we're always recalibrating and we're looking at cycles. And that's what the Moonbeam Team does. And we're learning how to explore that whole concept. So we integrate different ideas within our panel that I'm so glad to have the commitment of joining me every month. And this particular one, we could encapsulate. We always try to figure out, what is the message? There's got to be some kind of message, the big picture, the little picture, micro, macro, and it's push, pull emotions. Seems like almost, couldn't that always happen? Well, yes, in this one, it does seem to. There's moments. Anyway, that was our takeaway, and I hope we will see how and why and what path that's going to go into. These two full moons, actually there's three, not full moons, but there's a full moon, new moon, and guess what? There's going to be two full moons. So the first full moon was a couple days ago, July 23rd at 1.5, you could say, Aquarius, 1:26, 26 minutes of Aquarius, right at the very beginning. Kind of, okay. Then in 2 weeks on the 8th, there's going to be one in Leo. It's kind of the middle, about 16 Leo. So these are fixed signs. If you have anything in those degrees, it's going to be affecting you. For me, it's right in my chart. Yes. And then we have on the 22nd, just as the sun is leaving, another full moon at 29. So it's the very beginning and the very end. And in the meantime of shedding our full moon ideas of what has been lit, we have a birth of our new intentions. I know I've spoken a bit about it, but I am now ready to bring on the Moonbeam Team.
Relating to the sun and moon's energies, including the planets and the entire cosmos for the month's systematic 2-week intervals of the new moon and full moon, plus the annual 4 to 5 eclipses, this is your Moonbeam Team.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, certified astrologer, sacred healing counselor, tarotist, and numerologist, providing individual consultations, teaching and tutoring internationally, co-author of Gateways to Change, Keys to Navigating the Seas of Life, currently facilitating workshops in Camino Island, Washington.
I'm Catherine Metcalf, professional astrologer, intuitive, and tarot card reader. I am very blessed to live my passion by offering individual consultations and teaching classes at a local college and online. I love to talk and write about the planetary dances and how we fit into it. I have been lucky enough to be featured on NBC, Cosmopolitan Magazine, and Huffington Post. My goal is to educate, enlighten, and empower you.
And I'm Sarah Stromley, a craniosacral therapist and founder of Brain Body Therapy in Kirkland, Washington. I'm an evolutionary astrologer that incorporates different forms of horary, location mapping, and medical astrology into my practice. I enjoy uncovering flower and mineral frequencies that also support the mind-body coherence that aid in the healing journey.
And as Albert Einstein said,
Energy is never destroyed. Energy only changes.
Ah, yes, it certainly is. Again, thank you for talking the cosmos with us. And for those listening to us, we talk the cosmos. So I suppose we'll just begin looking at that first full moon that was a few days ago. That was at 1 degree and 26 minutes. And on the East Coast would have been 10:37 in the evening. So on the West Coast at 7:37, and here where I am at 4:37. And that's quick, but if people want to jot down, because you can find it on Zoom, Google. Yes, anybody have some thoughts immediately that stand out that they wanted to bring up? We could...
There's still time to work on your affirmations and your desires. Or no, this one's the full moon, so we're going to let go. We're going to release. Sorry about that. And the moon is encapsulated between Pluto and Saturn. So there could be some tough things that you've been working with for a while that you might want to release.
Makes sense that we think, of course, we'd want to keep working on that. Go ahead, Liz. I'm agreeing. I mean, Saturn and Pluto are not the simple change the clicker. It's like, where did the dirt come from? I mean, how do we replace our skin when we've thrown it off?
Well, yeah, and it could be restrictive, and it's like maybe time to like not do it anymore or make plans to be able to release and get out of it. But I'm sure other people have things to share too.
Well, I wrote about it the other day on Facebook or shared what I wrote on Facebook. And I had so many responses of people going, I'm pulling my hair out. It's so frustrating. So I do think, like Liz said, it's smack dab in the middle of Pluto, which is about death and rebirth. So major change. And Saturn, which is about restriction. And then the moon's opposing the sun to start with. So the moon in Aquarius opposing the sun in Leo, which is about me and we, right? Leo is always focused on themselves, and Aquarius wants to think about everybody else. But there could have been a challenge of what do you want to do versus what do I think other people want me to do?
Oh, boy.
So, yeah. So I think most people kind of felt the energy to be a little... like how you titled it, push pull, is perfect, and it makes this it's called an irritation angle or irritation rectangle, and you can see it here in this center here. So
oh yes,
yeah,
in fact I could pull up the chart too. That's a good comment. Yeah.
And then with Jupiter opposite Venus, it's like, watch the sugar cravings. It's like, I've wanted some sweets and it's just like, no, I'm not going to have any.
I think I must have been born with that.
Yes. In fact, I have the wrong chart here. Darn it. Sorry about that.
Because Jupiter expands and Venus does rule sugar, but it could be other things too. It doesn't have to just be sugar. So,
yeah.
And then Saturn opposite the sun, it's like the sun's wanting to bring things to light, and Saturn might be like, I want to restrict that. Maybe I don't want to tell you right now, or I want to control what comes to light.
Yeah, there is that, particularly with Pluto, and always a matter of trust, always a matter of because it wants life, but what's giving it life? And if something is a cautious, you might say, or maybe what's another word? Concerned that there's going to be betrayal, or it's that there's other manipulations afoot. It gets complicated. The shadow gets complicated with that energy. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I see that there's just a lot of intensity, almost a snap of awareness of where we've lapsed in our awareness of responsibilities, or where we've been, things that we are ready to acknowledge. That is really important. But there's also, with the sun in Leo is so strong at this time of year, and it really helps invigorate our vitality, and it supports stepping into who we really are and how we want to identify and take control of this. I do see that we're going to get a lot more awareness of this, as or we've been getting more awareness of this as this has been going over the weekend. And I would say in the next day or two, when the moon reaches Neptune, we may get a really good spiritual download of an insight of how we can really bring better resolution to this.
Oh, that's beautiful, Sarah. That really is. That almost makes me cry of gratitude. It's like there is a wave. I mean, here I'm on the ocean, and the rogue waves. There are the big waves. It's like, oh, the big wave is coming. We can surf it. We can. The cosmos, it gets about talking to us. So we are in this process, and it is true, isn't it, that a full moon, the energies, it's a secular thing where it's waning maybe, and it's waxing, and depending how it hits our chart, into that new moon. So really those code words that you brought up just in that last commentary, Sarah, was responsibility. I thought, wow, that's a cue word. Like, we're taking accountability, responsibility, always a reminder for myself that that's at least where I have control, right? I can adjust, which is tricky because here it's in consciousness with moon, and emotional and structure with Saturn. And it's what are my attachments? I know I personally have been feeling that so strongly. Like, if I get crowded for time, I get almost like I'm bankrupt, that bankruptcy feeling, like, oh my God, a crisis. And I have to, that's been my own personal awareness. And telling my dear husband, who he listens a lot. And I realized, wait a minute, I can adjust this. I'm not quite sure how, but now that I see it, there is another whole philosophy that if I can find out the rock, like what is the bedrock where that fear of a crisis, I'm just giving this as my example, but it all relates, because I think Pluto does engender a crisis situation. When something is no longer functioning and you know it, how do you replace that? Especially when it's with your attachments of feelings that have worked for you. It's a story that's given you a lot of energy, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but it seems like all of a sudden, once you see it, it's like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. How, anyway.
We actually had a real physical manifestation of this. Now that I'm thinking about it, we talked about it before we came on, that I live in Illinois, and it's like really hot today. This weekend, it's been really hot. And the day of the full moon, our air conditioner stopped working. And if you think about it, Aquarius is air, and it's a full moon. It's completion. Damn. And
as you said,
and it's the challenge of hot and cold, which are the temperatures of both the sun and this moon.
And the moon.
So yeah.
Oh my God, I'm living it.
Yeah, and the network, the electrical company, you're saying, wouldn't send people up to the attic because of the heat. So there you are. It's and not the control, the rules, the Saturn, for all of it. Yeah. So
Yeah, so maybe when the moon comes up to Neptune, like Sarah was saying, we'll have a solution and some nice air conditioning running again.
I know I in hot
Wow.
climates, I used to think if I had a little hat, like a fan on my head, or else water that kept dripping, because it cools you
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Well, and with Pluto opposite Mercury, that push-pull of how Catherine showed the chart, it's like, to me, it feels like on a seesaw. It's like you never know where it's going to be. You know, it keeps it's in movement. And so if you don't want your secret spread, don't communicate it to anybody. Don't tell anybody. But secrets could come up and be revealed too. I mean, it works both ways. So it's interesting, and it has been chaotic. And then this lunar gestation cycle goes back to January 24th of 2020. So that's about, when we were hearing about the virus and everything. So it's really interesting. So we're at that midpoint of the gestation cycle, which again takes 3 years. And so.
And we're getting this explosion of COVID, all from people that mostly from people that haven't been vaccinated that are filling the hospitals. So
Yeah, that's what I say. Now, before we go on, Sarah, I know that we all had this burst. All three of you went boom, to talk. Do you remember what it was that you were going to?
I just kept
Inspired.
getting I was so pulled by this dynamic of all this Capricorn and Aquarius dynamic that's opposing the sun, and that the god Apollo, and but I was really intrigued by, I kept getting pulled into the story of Janus, and Janus is represented by the two-headed god, that's a Saturnian god that has the young face looking forward and the old face looking backwards at the past. So and you see it right here in this chart, because Pluto is representing the past in Capricorn, and Saturn is in Aquarius, ruling the future. And Janus is considered to be a gateway god, much like Mercury. And he carries messages from the mundane to the divine. So this is a really important time, because this is setting up what we're experiencing because as a gateway, it's setting up what we're going to be experiencing on the new moon on August 8th as the Lion's Gate, which we'll cover a little bit later. So
Thank you so much. This is really beautiful, insightful guidance, which I particularly enjoy. If we're talking to the cosmos, with the cosmos, the antiquity of the mythology, to understand how it really, they sensed and saw it, how we can begin to understand, has real meaning for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and there's been this argument whether Kronos, also the god of Janus, who was first? Was it the sun god, or the god of the sky? And there's been this battle of but the image of Janus is said to have, he has in one hand he's got the number 33 or 300, and in the other hand he has 65, which rules the year and of time, which is also arguably ruled by the sun, for light and dark. So we're in this dynamic of this polarity and this split of having this communication of where did this start, and where are we going now?
Exactly. And a little bit further I'll mention, then we'll just segue into that new moon that we're rowing to, or going down the stream, or whatever we're doing. However, I won't go into that. But that, because it was the idea of Apollo and Kronos, which Saturn, Sun Saturn, and also with Egyptian. So I looked that up, and the Egyptians they called Saturn their god of light, Horus, Horus, which is like the hawk. It's great, whether it's a hawk or whether it's like the eagle and all the different great birds of many mythologies, and that so it is another distinction of this primal energy, as you say, that's I had not even considered, but food for kind of thought. Okay, let's go into, is it August 8th? And
Can we say the Sabian symbol first?
Oh, yes, go ahead, please.
Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Sabian symbol that I have for the 2, which is 1 degree after. So this is, Liz was explaining this today. So this is the present time frame, right? Okay. So, and I think it's perfect and profound for what we have been experiencing. It says an unexpected thunderstorm, a feeling of overwhelm, sudden surprise, and possibly fear. So inner strength and stability will be put to the test. So yeah, I'm feeling that in my house today. And then after the shock, the air will be cleared, like when we have a massive storm, right? So I guess the message is we're supposed to try and stay calm while we're in the center of the storm, and that flashes of clarity and illumination are possible.
Well, that relates to me and my awareness of what's the crisis, I mean, let's go on. All right, let's go on. Let's go it. And if anybody has any thoughts, go ahead. I'm going to try to share right now my screen, but this is and even if I can't, it's going to be August 8th, and it is at 16 degrees and 14 minutes. So if you have it, you can certainly speak. And they're conjunct. Mercury's not far away. In Leo, it's the seed time, yes? So maybe we can start off with the Sabian symbol for that, and then we can begin talking as I try to find this chart. Okay?
So you want to start with the Sabian symbol for the August 8th one?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So that one, so the new moon is at 16 degrees Leo. The Sabian symbol that I look at is 17 degrees Leo. And it says, volunteer church choir makes a social event of rehearsal. So that's about enjoyment of a gathering, and each person is encouraged to raise their voice in song, sharing the expression of spiritual joy, a sense of belonging, and uplifting others through the community. But I know that, this new moon has some challenges too, which I'm going to, leave to you guys to talk about. Because, I mean, we've got to
go ahead and open it. That's fine. Yeah. T-square, lead on.
I want to put in there another thing about the Sabian symbol, that the degree ahead of it, which they call the karmic degree, is brilliant sunshine just after a storm. A surge of life. So after the thunderstorm, which is very Uranian and very Aquarius, the degree before this one is talking about the storm. So I thought that was really important to add, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this sun moon conjunction, new moon, it's conjunct Mercury, and then it's opposing Saturn, and it's T-squaring to Uranus, which to me, the T-square, the moon square Uranus is, it can be compulsive need for stimulation or excitement. It can be rebellious energy, but it can also be innovations and inventions. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And
can
then
you see?
There's also an air grand trine with Saturn, North Node, and Vesta. So it's like there's so much energy, and it's air. It's like this emphasizing Aquarius, 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 and Uranus.
Can you see the chart now that's on for East Coast at 9:50 a.m. on the 8th?
Now we can.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So for our visual audiences on YouTube, if you subscribe, Talk Cosmos YouTube, you'll always be updated with these. And otherwise, for our wonderful podcast listeners listening to us talk about the cosmos, we'll try to be mindful of all that. Air, it is with the nodes in airs, North Node in air right now. It's really significant. And it's Saturn at 9 degrees Aquarius, the North Node at 8 degrees Gemini. I'm just being general. And then with Vesta, the hearth, the goddess of the hearth, our home, in Libra, of course, thinking of others at 8 degrees. So it's pretty exact. And, grand trines don't know how to quit. They work off each other. It's that flow going down the river. So we're working very strongly on, what was it? Finding that burst through the storm for the sunlight. Is that the idea?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Well, they describe the Lion's Gate because it's the 8th day of the 8th month. And in ancient religions, considered this, with how there was a big download of cosmic energy because there was an alignment at that time of Sirius to the pyramids of Giza. And you can see in this chart, I mean, it's so dynamic with all that air is fueling that fire, that really strong Leo energy, sun, moon, Mercury. And with the Mars and Venus in Virgo, it's ready to take action. It's very Mercury ruled, so it's ready to move. It's ready to take action and ready to do what it needs to do to get things done. And all that Uranus just squaring it. There you see that excitement just exactly as you were describing. It's very, very stimulating with that Uranus square. So
and it's interesting that you said it, was the Lion's Gate aligns with the pyramids, because, what's a pyramid? A triangle. A triangle is a trine. It's showing up there. That's so cool.
And again, looking at the past to the future, that Janus, because the past isn't just last week's TV schedule. I keep bringing this up, as a reminder that to get out of the mundane as we're thinking about it to the extreme longevity of what timelessness is. So certainly back at Giza, because the Sphinx, they think, anyway, it's very, very ancient, more ancient than we think, possibly.
And 15 degrees of fixed signs is the cross quarters between seasons. So that's very prominent because it's within 1 degree. And I don't know if it was Egypt or what country, but they always, when August 8th, around then, or when the sun got to 15 degrees of Leo, they would expect the rain, and it would flood. And
yes, the Nile.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was.
Very true. And then, well, Mesopotamia too, I'm thinking, which was between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers, also flooded. It was, and my husband was watching on Netflix shows of Egypt as they were unearthing a tomb that was just as many times. It's a perennial activity there, but this was, and the point was reminding us what we see now, this arid desert, was not existing way back when. Just like now, in other words, our nature changes. Deserts come and I don't know if they go, but they do develop. And the Sahara Desert, in other words, it wasn't always a Sahara Desert. It was a very fertile area. So the flooding was their sense of food. Yeah, stimulating squares. I like that resolution. I'm thinking we are throughout an entire year where this urge to change, of revolutionize, break the system and go on, of Uranus, of the outer planet, squaring our structure of Saturn. So now in an innovative sign. So it's toggles, or it ties into all this energy. And just looking at the elements, it's true that the air and the fire, and the fact that work off each other. And then I'm thinking too with Mercury, I'm thinking of what Sarah and all of you have said, that Mercury in Leo, closely associated. Well, if you look at a little more astrology here, but if you go into the parallels, the declinations, which has to do with from Earth, where they're lined up according to the latitude on Earth, that the sun, although it's an exact same degree with the moon, is actually the same declination as Mercury, which is essentially 7 degrees away, at least on this framework. So there's all these ways of angling things, but meaning that in a close parallel, when they're at the same latitude like this, want to work together. It's like a conjunction. So it really augments this idea that, as it was brought up with the other personal planets of our thinking cap of Mercury with our ego of Sun that's going to manifest has good tools with both our action Mars and our what we value and desires in Venus in Virgo, that's going to analyze and weed out what doesn't work, hopefully, So yes, there's a lot of, it's going to take work, right? Virgo is work, but it's going to.
And it's time for a break.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it is. Okay. Thank you. That's right. I was going to say in life and in everything. Very good. I appreciate that. This is Teamwork, the Cosmos Talking, and we'll be back again with the Moonbeam Team. That's Liz, Sarah, and Catherine. Thank you.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Leo, ruled by the solar sun. Having departed from a cycle based on the internal process of emotional attachments requiring security and safety, the energy of Leo externally manifests our legacy through children and artistic creations. As a fixed Yang fire sign that desires to ignite actualization, Leo the lion takes the risk to generously exhibit love and welcome all to share their stage with joyous pleasure for living life.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Hey, this is Tara All, resident astrologer for Sage Goddess in Los Angeles, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we bring the planets and signs to life here on Earth.
Going our own way every day. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hey, that was a good introduction into our Moonbeam Team's talk with the Cosmos, as we're talking about this new moon that's coming up on August 8th at 9:50 a.m. in the Eastern Coast. It's near the midpoint of Leo, actually 16 degrees and 14 minutes of Leo. And because, as the commentary was saying in that advertising, that now how can we be us with our actions? It is really Leo that we're talking about, these affirmations. And energetically, I was noticing too, the kite, as they call it, where it's a triangle, but there's a sextile. So there's this energy, there's rolling energy that we talked about, the air of our directions and how we're redeveloping our strategy, maybe with our goals and structure, with what matters for our hearth. But meanwhile, it's got a connecting force to, again, the Janus past of the South Node in Sag attached because they're so close together with Juno, our alliances. So it really does spell out that from what we've been experiencing with this moon right now, with the last full moon, where we're squeezed between how to change with structures. This is like an opportunity to kind of get that mojo going, but as a rudder, maybe look at, I don't know if rudder is the right word, but where we've been with our attitudes and alliances, and we can change that somehow.
Yeah, some of our relationships or friendships maybe just aren't working for us anymore, or we've changed. I mean, our desires and their desires, we're all changing, so it's shifting. And before you were talking about Mercury, and Mercury is pretty important in this chart because there's a yod or a finger of God pointing to Mercury from Pluto and Neptune. So it's super emphasized, in my opinion, communication. But we could be getting new messages, new information. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. It could be, great enlightenment with that. I wanted to go back just a minute and look at that Saturn square Uranus, and something that that you had said, Sue, about the rebuilding, and restructuring. And I thought about, what's happening in Washington, D.C. One of the big things that's on the table is the infrastructure of this country. So I think it shows up there too.
It certainly does. The cosmos talks, these energies, absolutely. That's the beauty of astrology, is to realize that, because collectively we're all those little drops making a big waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's good to know where this is hitting in your chart too, so you're able to brace and prepare for that a little better.
Yeah. And back to that yod, very thoughtful, because it does rule that North Node in Gemini, and it's in the Leo. It ties in a lot, and it's struggling. It's struggling here. It's struggling very much. By struggle, I mean, it can struggle. And then again, it can be, I guess, the going back to the possibilities of new messages through enlightenment. So I was trying to think of the affirmations, because we're talking about a new moon. So it is a time to really remember that our intentions matter. That's everything. And the intentions of how we feel, and if we can really get a grip. So this is so important to be purging, especially in Leo. It's one of the great manifestors of, I think, the year. Would you agree? Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
There's others too.
Yes.
I know the new moon in Scorpio
It's a
is
big one.
The fixed signs certainly are important. So how we can fit our life to how it works with others, it seems that's, we've spoken on that theme, but it's, what do the Sabian symbols say here? Let's talk about that again.
Well, we started with, so the Sabian symbol, the present one is 17 degrees Leo. That's that volunteer church choir making a social event of rehearsal. Liz, do you have the other one?
Yeah. And so on that, it's like kind of having a feeling of togetherness because we've been isolated so much. And then the quest degree to move forward is a chemist conducts an experiment for his students. So to me, it's like new discoveries coming. It's like, what are we going to discover?
Well,
be open.
It reminds me too, I think we've spoken, all these entries into space, which of course are controversial on one hand, but it's bringing the space to the public because people are going. And I know that there has been commentary with one individual on television that I've noticed, it says, which was my thought, you go into space, it's supposed to, quote, change you. And how is it going to change? And I was thinking, because the public is going up there progressively, ideally in this idealistic world, as we're looking at Yod with Neptune and Pluto, maybe, is there will be a shift of consciousness, yes, among people that have the means and direction and connection to direct it, one would hope. Does that resonate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be, I'm hoping that Jeff Bezos had a big awakening that he's willing to help millions of people by donating millions of money to people that need it, besides having his phallic shaped rocket going into air.
Right. Well, it is aerodynamically in the right direction to go up in space, right? So that's right. Okay. But I was just thinking, brainstorming, I'm going to say it because it just came to the brain here. What if in that magnitude of wealth, one could consider giving everybody a day off that was refocused? In other words, they would get paid for that day. It wouldn't be like, oh, they get to do their own total time off, but it would be, okay, we're dropping everything here that is your assignment with the idea that that day you contribute, and there's this whole choice of how to, or else you can ask to contribute on some volunteer method in the world. So it could be as basic as going to a food bank or figuring out how to get more food to the food bank, or it could be on any spectrum that was really maybe brainstorming how to recycle water in all our houses. Thank you.
Or fight the fires.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And how to heal the ocean, on and on and on. So that would be what a gift.
Planting trees.
Yes. So, there are actions. The world loves action. And dreaming. I know, Liz, you've talked on some personal basis, and it's good to dream, isn't it? It
Absolutely.
is, because imagination, and that's where Neptune comes in, is the gates are open. Talk about gates. It's like, let's just go for it. Let Saturn later and Virgo go, this is great, but we'll kind of use that later cook it up later. Right now, we'll freeze it or whatever. But oh my gosh. Yes, let's hope Bezos has a brain cell awakening. We can pray.
Well,
and we all start with our own selves,
Yes, that's
first,
right.
Whatever we can do, and then I can pray and hope that there is.
It's a good idea not to project. That's very true. Projectionism. Yep. Go ahead, you others. I have here thoughts.
Well, in the second Aquarius full moon on August 22nd, Neptune is opposite of Mercury. So it's like, is your story changing? Maybe not being so illusional with self. I mean, there's all kinds of journal and see what kind of messages you can get. The heightened spiritual awareness, which we've been talking about a lot today. So that, speaking of Neptune and going into that, that's pretty cool. And it's at the last degree of Aquarius. So that's a changing degree. So we started out at a very early degree, a beginning. And then at this full moon, it feels like a real big change is coming.
I thought it was interesting that you brought up the Yod that's happening at 29 Leo, or no, it's 23 Leo. I'm got to get my eyeballs straight. But it's opposite Jupiter, and so it's almost like there's the Leo can be so confident, so inflated at that time, and even more when it can be even more inflated when Jupiter's involved. So I could see where this could be by the time that August 22nd, whatever you declared as truth or committed to could kind of have a check-in at this August 22nd full moon.
Oh, that's appropriate. That's good thinking there. So midpoint, and especially with Jupiter, and anything Jupiter has expands. And we also know that numerically, that 28 degrees, it said, is just the full culmination, I think, of that energy. So that's really appropriate to recognize. And it's not that far off. You know, we're talking, it's always ahead, but realizing that well, let me think. Okay, we're on the 25th. We just had the full moon, so we're working a while for about 2 weeks till the 8th with the new moon. We seed, the ideas here that we've been talking about, realizing we have that mental yod of, and that you're bringing up too with Jupiter, to realize the I don't know, the potentialities, the possibilities, and extremes, and trying to bring them into some kind of realistic. Poor Virgo there has got a lot of work. Like, what do we fix and what is ours to fix? You know, it's just challenging. But what you're noticing is that then we get this second chance to go, hey, it wasn't all that possible. So now
maybe I overcommitted.
Good. Oh gosh.
And there's still an air grand trine, but the planets have changed to Saturn, Venus, and the North Node. So that's really interesting. And then Jupiter and Moon are conjunct. So it's like, pay attention to the mood around you, your own mood, and see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Can you repeat that first part? That flew right by me. I had no time to visualize.
Are you talking about the grand trine or the
No,
Jupiter?
Whatever you said. You went ba-da-ba-doo-da.
Oh, the Jupiter Moon conjunction. Pay attention to the mood around you.
No, before that.
Oh, there was a grand trine in air, and the planets have changed to Saturn, Venus, and North Node.
Okay, let's stop with that. Saturn, Venus, North Node. Good point. In other words, we're still in an energy cycle, but the teammates have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We exchanged teammates.
Right. And what are the teammates?
Good way to put it.
Yeah. What are the teammates? They're still Saturn, right? Saturn's still trying to renovate things.
We still have Saturn, but we added Venus.
Right. So what's our values? What's it all about, Alfie? Maybe, or something. That's a very old movie. I never knew it. I never watched it. I just got to delete that out of my brain. Delete.
The North Node is still there. So the difference is Venus.
And what's and Venus is in Virgo.
What do we love and what do we value, and what do we think of as beauty, as beautiful?
And harmonious. Go ahead. Yes.
Oh, I was just looking at August 22nd. I'm like, that's on a Sunday, and it seems like a beautiful day to do a big social gathering. You know, if you go to a church or something, maybe it'd be good to, or just have a party or barbecue or something, just to kind of end the close of summer, that type of thing. There's so many harmonious things that are group related, creative, and connecting. I just think it's a great day.
I love that, because Talk Cosmos is going to have their second Astro Jam. Catherine's going to be on it, along with, there's going to be 8 of us.
That'll be fun.
8 people. Yeah, and we're going to just
our party.
Yeah, and we're going to spontaneously just talk about a couple of charts. Of course, with 8 people, and it's all brand new, so we don't really know if we'll get through 8, one chart even. But we've got some ideas. So that's very, thank you, supportive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Catherine, do you have the Sabian symbol for this one?
Oh, for the 20, and we'll tell our audience, we're talking about the full moon on the 22nd, which is 29 degrees and 40.
So we're looking at
17 minutes.
Okay.
Aquarius. So, this is lovely. It's a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis.
Well, that would be the karmic degree.
That's the karmic one.
Yeah.
So
now
then
let's back
Aquarius,
up and tell people, excuse me, when we talk about karmic, let's explain what it means, because we're saying it's karmic, but that's the actual degree of 1 degree, right? Is that what
29 Aquarius? So it's the degree before the Sabian symbol.
So it's like where the karmic, that the Sabian symbol, because it's the Sabian's always the rounded off one that Edmund Mark Jones brought. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then this one, so what we're supposed to experience, moonlight fields, once Babylon, are blooming white.
What do they
Let's see
mean
what it,
once Babylon? What does that mean?
well, it says, let's see, an expression of purity, innocence, and the fruits of the past, the hanging gardens of Babylon.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Or a
Thank you.
magnificent structure that long ago celebrated the rule of human culture.
Was that
So
good?
there's that in my head, I'm like seeing a visual party, right? Like
Yeah.
what Sarah was saying. So yeah, it
But
says
also-
the energy and power of a place remains. The essence will long remain and the seeds will sprout forth anew. Rewards come from nature's bounty for all
Like-
the work that's been done.
Well,
Beautiful.
it supports that idea of Janus also. I'm just tying in the different conversations we've had of, again, the past with the present, and again of the
future,
full moon
yeah.
that we're actually experiencing. Yes, with the moon of attachment and stories between what we have to purge, what's no longer working with Pluto right now that we're talking about, that by then we'll have digested somewhat, because moon is digesting too. How do we integrate how do we reprocess it, and along with our new structures, and so that's amazing. So we go from the last full moon will be the birth, the butterfly, the rebirth, and then the karmic, and then it'll be the moonlight fields of what happened. And Liz, what's going to be the quest degree?
Okay, the quest, which is what we're working towards, or the next degree, a crowded public marketplace, buying, selling, looking, exchanging. So to me, it sounds like businesses are doing better, or people are feeling more comfortable at that time. So that's pretty exciting.
That's hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes right back to this seeded time. The seed says it is at the midpoint of Leo, the moon and sun. The thinking pattern with Leo, Mercury in Leo, which is so attached to that sun. Remember, I was saying declination wise, but it's got a good office going. It's got, the way I think about it, in Virgo, our personal planets. So in other words, if it's, anyway, I'm trying to recap, but it seems like there was thought about bountifulness, of our direction. There's a place for all of us to put it. Is that how you see it?
Mm-hmm. Well,
especially if we're doing the work.
Thank you. Yeah. Willing. And maybe that's where the affirmations and coming to realizing it doesn't have to all be logic, which Virgo wants to tend to do, but to let in the Neptunian, like we were saying, the enlightenment for it, maybe ask for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the moon's conjunct Jupiter, so there's optimism there. The moon is our emotions. Jupiter is expansive. So that's good.
And yeah, I just see with that last full moon, a really great way to connect with things that are unusual, untried, cultures, foods, people you would never think you'd have a conversation with, and making new friendships, new alliances, new connections and relationships that may be birthed out of this. So yeah.
An invitation to embrace the weird.
Wow.
Doesn't Portland have a saying about something about weird?
It should, because on the geodetic,
it is weird
longitude on it's midheaven. Okay, it's like early Aquarius. It's ruled by early Aquarius, whereas we are which used to be me in Seattle, was very late Capricorn. So and it's also an Aquarian state. So it is very embracing the new, which doesn't always get along. That's interesting.
And this, the yearly moon phase for both the full moons goes back to February 11th of this year. And that new moon was at 23 Aquarius. So if we like to look at that, so Very exciting.
Well, it is. It's hard to relate back. Time has gotten kind of strange with COVID. I don't know about everybody, but it's hard to gauge the old standards of time, the experience of it. A year is just enormous, and it's difficult. I want to get back to this idea about what Sarah was talking about, having conversations and stuff, because that really responded immediately in my own personal, and it has to do with Talk Cosmos. Omari Martin, who was on May 30th, and I guess we have to tie up. Any rate, was I talked with, and he was in, because I have this open date. We have the 3 panels and an open date, and encouraged me to bring in new people and controversial. And so we're going to have, I know Daniel Feverson is going to talk about his terms of what the declaration was of the independence. But we're going to have new things on the horizon. Well, we're getting signed off. This has been Talk Cosmos Moonbeam Team with Liz Machette, Sarah Stromley, Catherine Metcalf, the push-pull of emotions. And we thank you so much for joining us with this Talking to the Cosmos. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
See ya. Okay.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.